All right, waiting for Greg to come back. Sorry about that. Check, 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 check. Hello, hello, hello. I hate it that it cuts me off. I hate that it does that. That's so rude. Waiting, waiting, connecting.
Do you think that's like do you think that's like some kind of like if you have to have like 10,000 followers to do a long one?
I
Cuz
don't know.
cuz Raekwon was live the other day for like 4 hours.
You definitely have to be at a certain level. And I mean, like, bro, you're verified. Come on, Instagram. Um, I don't know how it works. Okay, so let's real quick. This person just asked. Put the questions in the chat. In the question section. There's a formal question box for the chat. People, don't just put it in the comments because I'm going to read from the question box. But before we do the Q&A, we're just continuing talking about Contact,
Oh yeah,
Greg's latest release, released last month,
End of May.
May, end of May, on Revenge.
Yeah, the same day that protests started.
Damn, damn. And you've been out there. You've basically been out there the whole time too. So it's not like it's not like you have a tour you can promote, unfortunately. But you're putting your energies to good use right now. But just going back to Randall, can you talk again about just was this one of your first sort of relationships with a producer where it's kind of like we're going in and I have ideas, but like the second set of ears is going to be a creative input as well?
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever done anything like that. And
Awesome.
Randall's a good friend. We've been friends for a while, and we'd talked about working together on other things. We had talked about doing a Guardian record together, and Guardian ended up ending sooner than
Yeah.
that. Ended up getting the opportunity to happen, but we kept in touch, and we've always been very. I don't know. We have like a very synergetic friendship, on like a number of levels. So it was very
Right.
exciting to just, get to spend a lot more time with him, and I trust his ear and I trust his approach and I trust the gestures that he makes. So
Yeah.
it was really just like what happens when we do this. I have some places to start, and I know I have, I have an album's worth of material here, but what else could happen? And we ended up not using a lot of the things that I planned on putting on the record, and instead going with a lot of acoustic things that we recorded just
Hmm.
because of how good Randall was getting of a drum sound in there.
Right.
And it made sense. I was not expecting to do this, but like half of the record is completely acoustic.
Yeah. That's what I was
So
gonna. That was my next thing. Was that it compared to gradual progression? It was more spacious and a little more in tune with the relationship between like the sensory stuff and the acoustic work, because there's they're both fantastic worlds that you explore, but finding that sweet spot in between and also not overwhelming the listener,
mhm.
because too many people might just be all like Greg Fox is gonna blast beat through the MIDI triggers and play fast, but this record has very, very slow and spacious moments that, to me, at the first time listening through, was like, oh shit. Compared to gradual progression, I had real moments where I felt like I was like breathing with you.
Mhm.
Was that like, was there intentionality
Mhm.
behind some of these compositions? Was this your relationship with Randall? Like, there's some new sounds here
Yeah,
compositionally. How did we come to that?
well, Randall certainly had a lot to do with it. I mean, as far as the choices he was making in the studio, the way we were processing the sensory percussion sound. In the previous record, this sensory percussion sound itself wasn't being processed, right,
Right.
as an acoustic sound. And so in this case, we did do that. We reamped sensory stuff and
Hell
ran it
yeah.
through a bunch of outboard gear in the studio. So that changed a lot. I mean, you're hearing it sounds like very much like an organ a lot of the time because
Hmm.
we run sensory through Leslie.
There you
So,
go. Yeah. That
so and that,
rotor. There's some rotary drums.
and if you know about Randall's work with Sun, oh, that's, you know, where they got that from is from him, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so that was a big part of it. Yeah, what was the question again?
Well, I was just saying compositionally from like, to me, it's unique for you.
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
it was definitely a different direction,
Yeah.
a more, not relaxed, but certainly energy varied.
Right, right.
Um,
So I
and
remember, so the other thing you asked was about you feeling like you're breathing there with me and how that might have to
yeah.
do with compositional choices. And it's
What's the
not
track I want to know the name of the track that I'm talking about. It's in the middle. I don't want to quit
is
Instagram.
it the one that's just, there's one that's just modular. Is it that one?
I'm not sure. There's like, it starts to da,
Yeah, it's called Paresthesia. Yeah,
Paresthesia. Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
so there's no
That's
drums
all
on that.
modular. There's no drums on that track.
Well,
Sounds
there
like
you go.
there might be a drum on there, but there aren't. So
That's the
the
mystery.
the way the drumming stuff is all mixed where there's drums, most of the time drums are mixed so that to the listener of a recording, it's as if the drummer is sitting at a drum set facing you, right?
Hmm.
So I'm the drummer, here are the drums, and there you are listening to it, right? The
Hmm.
way we mixed this was the other way, right? So here's the drum set, here's the drummer, and here's you.
Hmm.
So it was as if you were behind me
Yeah,
while I'm playing.
you're the drummer.
Exactly, right. And so like the hi-hat's on your left, right? And the
Yep,
ride's on your right. And so the idea was to make it feel like you're sitting in the drum seat as much as possible.
it's fantastic.
To not make it feel like I'm like putting something on you or like pushing something towards you, but instead to feel like something's kind of just like around you, you know? But that was, I mean, those were the kinds of things. I mean, so much of I think what's great about that record is the sound of it, and I
Hmm.
just have to say I feel like working with Randall was like really revelatory in that way.
Yeah, definitely. Just from like from a classical engineering drum recording perspective, like it's so clean. That's why I think it's like remarkable that it's like, it's synthesized into the moments of sensory, where there are sensory. But now, now I have to go back and say like, oh, what's modular versus
Right.
what's a MIDI trigger,
Well, the only thing that's modular on the whole record is paresthesia.
Okay,
Every other
gotcha.
electronic sound you hear is sensory, most often being run through some outboard gear at least. I mean,
Right.
always being run through some outboard gear, but
Yeah.
sometimes overtly and sometimes not.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's no modular drum in tandem stuff on Contact.
Awesome. Awesome. To me, it just feels a new territory that, I feel like you should absolutely stick with Randall,
Yeah,
because
that's the plan.
those relationships, between, performer and producer, can't be overlooked.
Well,
It's like,
Randall and I also have a project together with Angel Deradurian.
oh, that's right.
We do a trio called Kalpa,
Okay.
and so
Okay.
we're working on a record together remotely.
Uh-huh.
Um, Randall hits me up about playing on this or that every once in a while.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. At this point, I mean, if we're going to talk about career to some degree, at this point, it's so not like, well, I just like put a record out every couple of years and then I run on that because this is not how, I mean, well, right now nothing works, but
Right.
it's just not how it works anyway because, I mean, I love collaborating with people and I like doing it in a way that's as liberated as possible. Not
Hmm.
necessarily even regarding the music itself. I just
Right.
mean in terms of the connections and, you know, so yeah, I mean, obviously, like every chance I get to work with Randall in the future on every project I do, I'm going to take.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. I think that's I don't know. Is he in the Black Sabbath group too? Um,
no, he's
no,
not.
he's not. I
Yeah,
know Angel's in that.
Angels and Sabbath. Yeah,
It's
we.
sad.
Yeah,
These relationships, are very, very important, and I
yeah,
feel like the concept of not burning bridges, is something that like people need to hold on to, because I feel like there's too much, and this is getting political and career wise too, but like too much of even the DIY world is like a dog eat dog, market.
It's really hyper opportunistic. Yeah.
Exactly. And people are very quick to move on to what they think is a bigger, better thing. Grass is always greener, but we're all desperate is what the reflection of it is, And I think that any situation that I've dealt with where like a relationship has had to end, it's with another artist or something like that. It's always money. It's never art.
Never been money in my case.
It's never interesting. So please, talking about sustaining relationships in the professional world as an artist, as in like professional meaning you're paying your bills. Like what's your approach to collaborating, whatever. Yeah.
This is the way it goes. So my mentor guy, one of my mentors guy, told me this many years ago, and I stick with it. There's a 2 out of 3 rule when it comes to doing collaborative projects. You could probably extrapolate and apply this rule to other things too by shifting some of the variables. The 2 out of 3 rule is like this. To do something, to make something worthwhile, worth your energy and your time, you got to have a strong 2 out of the following 3. Okay. One of them is the love, right? So the people involved, the hang, how much you like them, etc.
Yeah.
And how they make you feel. 2 is the work itself, that you like the thing that you're making with these people, right? It makes you feel good, it's satisfying, fulfilling. 3 is the dough.
Right.
It's good money, right? You got to have a strong 2 out of 3. If you don't have a strong 2 out of 3, you're wasting your energy, right? I live by that,
right?
Like as a code, you know what I'm saying? That is like really, really important for me. Now, I have my own additional 1 out of 3 rule, which is also part of my code. And it's like this. There is only one of the following 3 ways that working with other people works, right? One, and this might sound obvious, but people get stuck into ambiguous middle grounds here. It's got to be one of the following 3, and clearly, right? Either it's your shit and you pay other people in a way that justifies their time and energy and makes them feel good about giving you their time and energy, right? But it's your shit.
Right.
Number 2 is you share equally. Everything is shared equally. It doesn't matter. Some people may have different jobs or roles or whatever, but everybody shares equally. Everybody shares the spoils equally. Everybody shares the celebration equally and the credit equally. And then the other one is it's somebody else's shit and they pay you in a way that justifies your time and energy, right? That makes you feel good about doing it. If it's not one of those 3, if it's somewhere in the middle, or if it's ambiguous in any way and you can't get clarity about it, don't waste your time because it's not going to go well. And I've learned that from experience. If you stick in ambiguous territory and you seek clarity and can't find it, you are cruising for a bruising. That's just the way it is.
It's so hard.
People are afraid of letting go of situations that might work for them in some capacity. This also speaks to relationships, not just music. This is all kinds of relationships. Yeah. People will settle for getting breadcrumbs. And the fact of the matter is you have to be somewhat aware of what your own standards are and feel capable of reinforcing them via looking at some of these kinds of rules and saying to yourself, does this really stand up to what I need for this to work? And if it doesn't, and you're worried about what you might lose for leaving the situation, another way to look at it, it's understandable to have that fear, but the other way to look at it is think about all the things you open yourself up to when you stop having your energy occupied by this thing that you know doesn't work for you, you know? Yeah. So, I mean, I'll tell you something. As a person who's spent years lingering in situations that I knew didn't work for me, right, in various capacities, I can tell you right now, if you are asking yourself the question over and over again of whether or not you should stay, you shouldn't.
Beautiful.
You know what I mean? So you learn. You learn, man. You learn. I'm 35 now. I've dealt with bullshit. So I don't deal with much now because, and it's not because I'm like good vibes only or some shit like that. It's because I only work with people who I want to eat dinner with. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. All the projects I put together now, all the collaborations I do are with people who I love and love spending time with. And I love getting them paid, and I love showcasing them and supporting their work. And that shit makes me feel good. That's like all I care about. The
Yeah.
money will come. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
or it won't. But,
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
but
but
like,
but you got the 2 out of 3 rule. You know, if it's a but it's, you know, it's passion projects can and should exist, but they have to be. There can't be that ambiguity that you're talking about, because the collaborations and bands, you know, collaborations versus bands versus solo artists that include you know, ensemble members. You know, there have to be these clear cut definitions going into it, even if it
yo,
is like, even
yeah.
if it is your friend, you
Yo,
know,
if
and
it's
that's
but you realize another thing that happens when you start to get a little bit older is you start to realize that some of your friendships you're holding on to, some of your friendships and your relationships, professional and otherwise, we hold on to because we're afraid of letting go. We're afraid of if it might hurt if we let go, even though these relationships don't work, right?
yeah. This is
And you,
this is just real life. This is everything.
for sure. And you just get to a point, you start getting a little older, and you look and you know, evaluate the relationships you have in your life, professional and personal, and you start to realize, like, well, this actually doesn't work. And
Yeah.
you know, you have to take responsibility for yourself in those relationships. It's not anybody else's responsibility if shit doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If you communicate and shit still doesn't work, make space for something that will, you know, to find you, right? Or for you to find. So, I mean, it just, you have to slog through. I mean, this is like dues in a way, right? You have to slog through a bunch of shit to get to the other side of
Yeah.
it, I think.
Yeah.
But if you can take the advice of somebody who's lived through it and just, you know, work with that rule and really trust that good things will come if you stick to the people who you love and treat them really well, you know, I
Yeah.
think because this hunger in this music world is dark because what people are
Yeah.
trying to, what the reward's not that big, you know?
Exactly. We're fighting for scraps, you know?
Yo, for real. I mean, talk about a relationship that we need to reevaluate, man.
Yeah, seriously. This whole Spotify thing,
Yo,
hopefully will put some, I feel like, not on the musician's angle, because we've been talking about this forever, but like from the consumer and, you know, genuine music lovers perspective of like, what does it cost? You know, to me, it's like there's ambiguity in terms of like putting a number on art and like based on the individual buyer versus who's selling it, blah, blah, blah. But like people can't live off of doing that. You
right.
know, objectively speaking, for the guy to say like you can't put out something every 3 to 4 years and expect it, like who the fuck is doing that? Like I make a joke that I'm making an algorithm that will shit out an album every day. There are people that do that for a living,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
and that is how they live. And it's not like they went to music school for this to become a one-person factory in that sense. So it's like the value versus the output. You know, I record a shitload. I release very little, but
Sure.
still, like if I wanted to go down that path, like it's a path, but it is not what this guy is talking about.
No.
And
And
you
he's
know,
talking about pop music because the fact of
exactly.
the matter is, somebody has to listen to my record 40,000 fucking times for me to get $6.
Yeah,
I mean, $6. There is not one record in my, not even my favorite record of all time that I've listened to 40,000 times,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Never. There is no way that you can support musicians and use Spotify.
Yep.
Straight up.
Straight up.
It's just that is the fact. And the fact of the matter too is you're not even getting those fractions of pennies. Your label does, and then you get the royalty. So it's like
Lady Gaga like had some report that she released where she was making like $6,000 off of her like hundreds and hundreds of millions of streams. You know, like
no, I mean, I tell literally anybody who ever asks me about music, what's it like to be a musician right now, people who don't understand any of this shit at all, whatever. I always say, if you want to support musicians, find them on BandCamp and buy their music there, or just find them on the internet and ask how you can support them. Because if you're listening to their shit on Spotify or streaming in any way, you're not supporting them. You're supporting a company that exploits them.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
People need to be really clear about this. When this guy Daniel Ek gets on stage and says that all right, everybody, time to turn up productivity. I'm like, yo, it's revolution time.
Yeah,
I can't with that guy. That made me so angry. So angry.
It's one of those things that like even Apple Music, although it's the same business model, of course, but like Apple Music is still like has more of a leg to stand on when it comes to like supporting artists, not in what Apple Music does, but Apple as a company does. And obviously, they're giant evil capitalist corporations that get their minerals for the iPhone that we're using right now in Africa, you know, and shit like that. Nothing is ethical, but I need their product to produce my art objectively. You know what I mean? Like computer, software, whatever. Spotify.
I mean, it's either that or buy a $40,000 tape machine.
Exactly. Like there's no pragmatic way to go to avoid having to participate in the market right now. So it's stupid for people to say, oh, like, oh, you're a socialist, go live in Venezuela. I see you have an iPhone. It's like, dude, like fucking give me a better public, like give me a support system, give me healthcare, and I will stop complaining, you know?
Right.
So in the case of music and Spotify being this just a company, a tech company, that has made a platform that has been since then become standardized for users, not necessarily for artists, but for the streamlined point, literally streamlined user. There has to be a different way, because when he tells us time to ramp up productivity, he's not involved in this world. Even in the pop music world, even for people who are trying to get their shit on the radio, who do have publicists, who do have labels, you know, in a more traditional sense, like it's not, these are two industries.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that dude is at the top of my list, man. Seriously. That shit is dark. And honestly, until they start paying my fucking health insurance and my rent, that guy can go take a shit in the ocean as far as I'm concerned.
For real. No.
Gay cock and off and yon, if I'm going to take it back.
He's verkackte.
Yo.
He's verkackte.
Mashugana.
He's fucking Mashugana.
He's a schmendrick. He's a schmendrick.
He's a gunnif. He's a gunnif.
He's
a gunnif. He's a fucking thief.
Yo, I like this. This is the podcast where we just speak Yiddish insults about the villains of the music industry.
Oh my fucking God.
But I mean, well, you know, I think the BandCamp shit is turning everything in the right direction. The fact that they're doing this BandCamp day every Friday, they waive all their fees every Friday. A lot of people don't. I mean, think about how many people use BandCamp and how many people don't even know it exists, right?
Right.
If we can get enough people to use BandCamp, if we can spread the word enough about the fact that Spotify and streaming services in general are exploitative, then it's possible that, you know, we can find a way for musicians to get direct support, because it only like I said, that's $6 for my record. That would take 40,000 views, right? If somebody's just like, yeah, I like this, here's $6. That's not a lot of money. But if that happens as many times as people listen to my record, I don't have to fucking worry about money. I don't have a big nut, and it gets covered. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So it's like, if people shift out of this whole idea that they're entitled to this music all the time, without actually the artists getting money, it's like, what?
It's the like, YouTube effect. It's the YouTube effect where we, unfortunately, have become used to content all the time, all access content all the time, without but so much of it is sponsored. Like people don't think about who's getting paid or who paid for this, you know? And when it comes to music specifically, there's this giant disconnect, right? There's this complete, and BandCamp, like you said, compared to Spotify, like the problem is now is getting people to understand it exists, first of all.
Right.
But even on their app, you can stream, you know? I stream, and what I do, my personal thing is to stream playlists or whatever that might be curated or whatever.
But can't you only stream a couple times?
It depends on your page. You can have, as an artist, you can like limit streams, right? Okay. So it's like, which means like you're gonna get a couple tastes of the full. You can listen to the full album and once before you buy it. But for me, it's like that's enough for me to know like I want to buy this, you know.
Right.
And even not, because it's like half of it is just out of principle. You gotta support, and BandCamp is the easiest direct way to do that between you know value of music to money you put in. You know, that's unfortunately it's getting cheaper too. Like you know when CDs used to cost $20.
Right, I know.
And obviously we can't all press nice glossy Revenge International vinyl. They
Well,
look good. They look good.
we barely could either, man. Let me tell you
Yeah.
something. Times are weird, man. They
Seriously.
do look good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. I still haven't gotten my copies, man. I gotta go over to the shop and pick them up. But
Right. That's right.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like it's just a very strange time, obviously. I mean, I would have been on tour in Europe right now for the third time this year.
Yep.
Sabbath was going to play on 4th of July in Mannheim, Germany. I pulled that shit off.
Holy shit.
So we're hopefully going to do that next year. But you know, it's that kind of stuff. BandCamp makes a big difference for me and for a lot of other musicians. So everybody who knows that knows, but a lot of, just like you said, I think, you know, spreading the word about that. And it's, you know, it's a time where I think we have to rethink in a way the way we're using social media as far as what it's for, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like not, I think social media, look, if you're a professional person and you are, you know, promoting yourself there in one way or another, but like I honestly think Patreon is a better model for that. Like if you're a content creator, right? Why are you putting it on Instagram for free? Like, you know, Instagram is a place to make those connections and you know, tell people kind of what you're about, but it's also to talk about the shit you care about. And I think we need to see a little more of that, maybe, instead of it being kind of like a fringe kind of thing.
Right.
I feel like I'm starting to go all over the place, but
No, I know. And I mean, like, we can have the social media conversation is its own.
Don't get me started, man.
I won't. I know you have your own. I know you have your own thoughts, and you've had your ups and downs. Let's talk to people though. Let's get some Q&As in here because I don't want to.
Yeah.
You know, we're on an hour and a half now, and you get two Jews who are caffeinated in a room or virtual room. It's gonna just never end. So let's get some people in here. It's true, man.
I know.
All right, so Jacob, everybody who's watching right now, if you have a question for Greg, please send it to the question box at the bottom of your screen where I can read it, and I'm going to read it out to you. Oh, here he goes. It goes on the screen.
Oh, cool.
What has your relationship been with record labels? Do you approach them once a project is complete, or in development of the record? That's a good question. Go ahead.
Can't read the rest of what they're asking there.
I know it's maybe you guys should limit it to like 2 sentences. We can't read the full paragraph.
My relationship to record labels. Well, I mean, it depends on the situation. When I first started working with labels, it was about sending them demos, things that I was working on, and seeing if they were interested in doing a release of some kind. And then, you know, obviously like looking at a contract and seeing if it made sense to sign it. So that's how it kind of was in the past. But now, because of the fact that I have some relationships with a bunch of different labels that I like a lot, and I like the people who run them, I can pretty much just say, hey, like, I have this thing, it's a collaboration with these two people, would you be interested? And, you know, people will say, yeah, that sounds cool. Like, send it when it's done, you know, so.
Oh, he finished this. He finished the sentence. Relationships you had already had, and reach out to people that you want to work with.
But it's both. I mean, when Liturgy put our first record out, I really wanted to work with Thrill Jockey because I had other friends who were on Thrill. So I asked my friends to connect me to Bettina, and you know, then the conversation started, and Thrill Jockey wanted to do it. So that's when I started working with Thrill. And then because of that, when I told Bettina, hey, I have this other thing, this band I'm starting, Guardian Alien, would you be interested? She said yes, and we put that out. And then the same thing with my duo with Kid Millions, Bettina said yes, right? So, you know, that's really the main thing right now. Like, there's a kind of, for the first time last year, I reached out to a label that I've never worked with, where, I mean, I, you know, spend 15 years touring around and playing live music, you get some degree of separation with everybody, but I'm approaching the idea of working with a label that's like much bigger than one that I ever had before, still indie, but for for a new project that I've been working on, a band that I put together a couple years ago that was supposed to play our first show and release our first record, or record our first record this year. But yeah, that was more just being like, hey, I have this bigger scope project that I'm interested in doing. These are the people involved. Would you be interested? You know, yes, send it to us when you have something you want us to hear, you know?
Gotcha.
So kind of like that at this point. And then occasionally I'll get hit up by smaller labels or cassette labels or things like that, asking me if I'm interested in doing a thing. Like that's how I ended up doing the Mondoy tape, this label from Warsaw, and I met them at a gig in Warsaw years ago.
Right,
So
right.
that kind of stuff.
One question in the comments, and there's two in the box. We'll do the question one first. And this is a good one because we didn't talk about it much. Your biggest lessons and takeaways from studying with Milton Graves. For those of you that don't know, during I guess was it the gradual progression or before that, working with the biorhythm theories.
Before that, I was on the record called Mitral Transmission.
Mitral Transmission. That's the first. I always get them confused. Mitral Transmissions, which has like, what was the first track?
It's okay.
The pan,
oh no,
it's
no,
okay.
no. That's the there's Cardio 1 and 2, Dance Performance, and It's Okay. Yeah.
It's Okay is the pan steel.
It's got hang drum.
Hang, right, yeah.
EBO acoustic guitar, and I think that's it actually. Yeah.
Right. So how was that? Because that was the era that you were studying with Milford, right?
So when I started to study with Milford, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot from Milford. Like I was mentioning earlier, just about the connection of the heart, communication from the heart, the biologicals, thinking of drumming as having a biological source when you're drumming and expressing that. You know, I don't know. I mean, we spent so much time talking about specific musicians, and you know, I think I've learned so much about drumming just from watching him play. And then, you know, we never really, I mean, in all the time I spent with him, there was never like one time we took out sticks and played together, like one time.
Really?
You know, yeah, it was never a main focus.
It's really a more philosophical sort of, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I remember.
Guru.
Yeah, or just like I mean, a mentor to me, like being a mentor is the way it makes most sense to me. Like I remember one time I got asked about doing a gig where I was asked to come and play with a bunch of people, and I called Milford and asked him if he thought I should do it. And, you know, he was like, you know, or, you know, these kinds of things, like sort of like asking him about specifics and learning and honing my ways of thinking about things through kind of the things I would glean from him talking about his experiences or what he thought about things I'd ask him about, you know.
Mm-hmm. He's been around for a while, so when you ever get the chance to like pick a legend's brain about anything, I mean, like I had done when I was at college, I had Morton Subotnick as my composition professor, and again, like half the time we wouldn't be making or listening to my music or his music. It was just like sort of discussions. And I mean, like, you know, when you get to a certain age and you're a certain caliber of like your career, it's like it doesn't matter if you're even a good teacher or not. It's kind of just like you just want to absorb their thought process because they're at a place that you might want to get to. But it sounds like Milford actually like gave a shit about his students and has his mentees, you know, like I know a few other people that he lives in Bed-Stuy. Is that where he's at?
He's in Jamaica.
In Jamaica, right. And he would always have folks over there, right?
Yeah, I mean, there would be a lot of times where I'd go, you know, there'd be like big gatherings of a bunch of his students would come and hang out and talk about things. And, you know, there's like a kind of community around him in a way. Right. Folks who, you know, I mean, you know, I don't know. So he'd hit everyone's. One time he literally hit me up and was like, I'm really craving a Jewish rye bread right now. Can you get one for me? And I was like, yo, absolutely. I'm glad you were to ask me. You know
asked
what I mean?
you. Honored.
Yeah.
You're honored.
Yeah. It's like I'll go. It's like I'll go make one. I don't know. You know what I mean?
But whatever like, you say.
Yeah. But no. I mean, look, it's like like you're saying, it's not about these specific things you learn. It's about just spending time with these people and like absorbing. You get these little morsels from them every once in a while. You
Hmm.
also experience them as real human beings. So
Right.
they're not, it's like these people who I just think it's very cool when somebody lets you in that way. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And I feel very honored to have been let in to the degree that I was.
Absolutely. I feel like the home lesson, going to the teacher's home,
Yeah.
throughout my life, exactly like you said, it shows them as a person, which kind of breaks down the intimidation barrier when you're approaching someone like Milford of some sort of you know his degree of excellence is just through the roof. So you don't want to let him down. There's pressure. And same with me with Sabatnik or whatever. But he had me come to his place in the village too, and his dog would hump me, and he would like always give me food and coffee to like make up for that fact. But that's a personality trait of his that I learned because of that. So it's like getting yourself led into these legends is something that for anybody watching this now or in the future, like if you're in studies and if there's someone on your faculty or there's someone in your city that's of a certain caliber historically, and if they're at that age too, you gotta get with them while they're still here. That's just how it is. So here, hold on. I have to open this box. We got two more preguntas. Oh, here we go. What were rehearsals for? Oh, here we go. What were rehearsals for the In C this past December like?
Oh,
How many times have you been a part of the Le Poisson Rouge In C crowd with Nick? Was that just once?
I only did that once. It was a couple of years ago.
Oh, so you weren't in the
But
one for this past December.
I think what this person is talking about, if I think that this person's talking about, we did a rainbow and curved air
Ah,
at Pioneer
yes.
Works.
Yes, that's exactly what you did. Oh man, I
Yeah.
was one of the few things that I really wanted to be back in New York for since
Hmm.
leaving New York was that
Mm,
performance.
mm.
Jesus.
It
Tell us
ruled.
about that. Tell us about that.
I mean, it ruled. It was like everybody else on stage was were close friends, people I love playing with, whose music I really like, and we all love Terry. And Justin Fry did an excellent job of creating like a score and an approach for us to play it as an ensemble.
So he arranged something for you guys, like kind of like ensemble, like like
He
music
made like
director.
he made like a rearrangement of it. Yeah, he basically MD'd that, and
Awesome.
I mean, it's kind of like not the first time I've been asked to play or be involved in playing a piece of music that doesn't originally have drums in it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or at least not drum set.
Right.
Um, so it was cool. I felt like I don't know. The rehearsals were fun because we're just hanging out with people I really love, and we were all very excited about doing, you know, this thing and getting to do it with Terry there. You know what I mean? It was
Right.
so wild, and
Must be surreal.
it was. He's also so much taller than I thought he'd be.
Yeah, I
He's
feel
like
like
he's
I
like
feel
really
like
tall.
I feel like I've seen photos of him pretty
He's this
large up there. Yeah.
very tall guy, but yeah, it was the rehearsals were great. It was it was a total pleasure. If only I could wake up in the morning and go do that every day, I'd be in
Right.
heaven.
I feel like, and we could relate this. I'll expand on this question because you were talking about, playing music not for drums, but also music made by it's not, Rainbow and Curved Air is not classical music, but we'll put it in this new music, composer score category that was rearranged for live musicians that aren't necessarily in that, new music sort of world. So taking off of that, with your work with Colin Stetson with Sorrow, being the Symphony of Sorrow by Heinrich
Hmm.
Gorecki. I
Hmm.
mean, he's not alive, but I mean that would have been interesting seeing his reaction to
His
Colin's.
family is. He's got
Oh,
family members, and
did they come? Did they come?
they tried to cease and desist us.
What?
Yeah,
That's fucked up.
yeah. Well, we played in what is Goretzky's hometown?
Is Warsaw? I'm not sure.
No, we did where?
Lublin? I'm just gonna start naming small Polish towns now.
I've been there a couple times actually. Anyway,
Yeah, I know you guys did a Polish performance, like as much of like, and it was like televised, right?
yeah, we did it, and we did a thing. Wait,
Someone posted, say, "Hey, look, we have
Katowice,
Katowice."
Katowice.
Somebody in the comments.
Hey,
It looks like a
Katowice.
Polish name.
I've
Somebody
been there
from
a few
Poland.
times. Yeah, that is definitely a Polish
Thank you,
name.
Voy. Thank you, Voy.
Yeah, so it was, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think they were mad because of the drums, honestly, and like the electric
Wow.
guitars and stuff like that. They thought that
Wow.
reinterpretation of his work was like a slight against him and the family name. But people also really loved it. It's such a cool project to play. It's like so intensely emotional to play that music for me.
Yeah.
And then you get to these points where I'm just like doing these big hits with like a 10-piece orchestra.
Yeah.
Pretty sick.
It's
Again,
like,
if only every day could be like that, I'd be so stoked.
and I feel like you were kind of taking the role, like turning the drum set into the timpani and cymbal section. You know, you have to take on the classical kit, the classical
Right.
percussion repertoire, which it originally was for. But there are obviously moments in the original score that have these very rhythmic meters, or, you know, grooves, if you will, you know,
Yeah,
things
I
that are
mean,
very clearly.
the third movement is like
Yeah,
doom metal. You know
exactly.
what I mean?
Exactly.
So
So
uh,
slow.
I know, and it's really, and it's I don't, and I usually, I mean, I don't really read so well. I can read rhythm, but like not great. So I
Yeah.
had to kind of make my own chart for that piece that I have to read every time we do that. Like
Yeah.
I don't have it memorized. It's
That's the score.
the timing's weird because it switches from 3/4 to 4/4 and back and forth a bunch of times throughout that piece.
Hmm.
So like I am like counting the whole time, like the whole time. It's intense.
I have to make a meme that's just like Greg Fox, like movement one of Sorrow Symphony, where it's just like waiting for that one, you know, the first kick,
Yeah,
like halfway through, where you're just cymbal rolling the entire
I
time
know,
up to
I
that
know.
point.
Yeah. I mean,
So good.
I really would love to be involved in a performance of Mahler's Fifth, so I get to
Mm,
hit the anvil. I would
yeah.
love to do that. I
Yeah,
would
let's
really love to do that.
take you off of the kit, put you in
Yeah.
the classical setting, you know,
I just want to wear a tux and do one note with a giant hammer. That would be
or
really satisfying.
Tchaikovsky 1812 overture. You could play the canon. You
That
know
would be cool.
that's
Yes.
that's in the
Yeah.
percussion section. Is a
Yeah.
gun.
Yo, exactly.
Boom.
Yo,
Let's
that's
look.
how it should be.
We got one more.
What else
We
we
got
got?
one more question
All right, all
here.
right.
Um, oh wait, two more questions. Starting here. This is one of my students, a younger gentleman here. I'm a guitarist and started working with a drummer. Any tips that aren't talked a lot? So talking specifically the relationship between guitars and drums, even in the more traditional band setting. Any thoughts
Oh,
on that? I don't know the last time you've been in that setting.
I mean, I don't know. I work with guitarists a
Oh
lot.
yeah, you're in
I mean,
XI. XI is a band.
yeah, but I mean, the project I put together that I mentioned earlier, it has two guitarists in it, and then I mean, I put with a lot of guitar players. So I think the main piece of advice I would give to a person working with a drummer, right, is people have this tendency to like try to talk drums, but they don't really quite know how to convey it.
Hmm.
So I think just like be honest about what you hear in your head that you want to hear the drummer try to do, and express it in a way that's gracious, and like just be a nice person and everything will work out fine. Like, you know, I mean, without more specifics about the situation, I'm not sure exactly what to advise, but I would
Right.
just say that like drumming is, you know, outlining the way that you want if you have an idea, a rhythmic an idea, and you're asking a drummer to convey it, try to just be as clear as you can about the way that you talk about that idea, because, and don't use, like, people will often use like stylistic terms. Okay, here's the thing. People will often use like stylistic terms to ask people to or not to do things. Like, don't do that moshy part or whatever, you know, like make up using these like stylistic ways of expressing like a thing they like or don't like. And I would highly recommend trying as much as you can to be literal and specific about what you're asking for, and not use ambiguous terms that people could interpret differently, because you get a lot of frustration when people don't understand what somebody's asking them for. You know what I mean? And then what you also do when you use those kinds of terms is you create you're starting to create a language when you work with another person in terms of the way you write music together. So when like a blanket, you got to be careful about the words you choose to delineate certain ideas, because you can walk yourself into a corner if you're speaking too generally or ambiguously about the things that you hear in your head.
Right.
If that makes any sense, that would be my advice.
I feel like in my own experience, being not a drummer, like tradition by any means, but like dabbling in percussion as a performer, but also as a vocalist, like the best way I've worked with percussion is just like in the Carnatic tradition of just making syllables and like just like not beatboxing, but you know, like I'll tell you like a Greg Fox triplet blast, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know?
I do.
So it's like it you know, because I'm talking about your shit, but I mean it's literal. It's literal in that way. So I feel like having the ability to articulate, even if it has to be verbally, is some of the most important thing you can do amongst instrumentalists.
It often does have to be verbal, and I would just say there's nothing wrong with asking another person to try to express an idea that you have, right? In a music context, to say, hey, I'm hearing it in my head like this. Can we try it like this? But just like be nice and don't be like a demanding asshole, and like don't disregard the fact that this is a person who also has ideas, right? So like if they are executing your ideas, be thankful about it and be nice and grateful for that. And express that, and you know, and leave room for other people's ideas too. You know what I mean? I think that's like, you know, it's weird. You assume everybody kind of knows some of these things, kind of intuitively, but they don't, in fact. So I think it makes sense to articulate them specifically. Like
you said, like if you're gonna be a dictator, just be like forthcoming about it. This is my project.
Just make that the deal. Just make that the deal.
Exactly.
Be clear about it. You know?
Exactly.
Be clear about all the terms. Be clear about all the terms. This is my shit, and there's no money. So if you want to do it, then do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. You know, don't do this. You know, and even if it is your shit, right? You can have it be your shit and still let other people's shit be part of it. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
There's a way you can do that. You just be clear. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, one more question and then we'll wrap it for today.
Okay.
I really appreciate you taking all this time. It did going way over what I expected.
I mean, it's my pleasure. It's great to speak with you. It's cool to get the opportunity to go deep. We didn't even scratch the surface of a lot of other things that we said we were going to talk about.
I know.
So
we just
maybe
need a podcast.
Maybe another one. I'm down, man. You know I'm down.
All right, we'll come back. We're going to come back to that. Okay. Someone wrote. All right, this is getting cut off too. Damn it! How do I read the whole thing? Sorry, I was late because of time difference. But if there is time, I was curious what your experience. Oh, with Thurman. Yeah. Oh, you read? It's because it's because I have old people font on my iPhone. It's bigger text. Yeah, I got it. Trouble. I see. So yeah, is this a garbage print camo? Is this a Bard person? So yeah, I studied with Thurman Barker when I was at Bard a little bit. It was cool. It was like, I don't know, he's a great teacher. Well, first of all, studying drums with him, right? Because I took some like academic music kind of academia courses with him too. But I liked Thurman a lot. He was super sweet. Like definitely like deeply engaged with me, and from what I understand, all his other students too. Really amazing drummer, and just like awesome to get to
go sit with your professor at the drum kit in his office. It's cool.
Right. Right.
He taught me a lot about physicality, ergonomics of playing, healthier practices. He, I don't know. Honestly, my memories about him are more from the jazz history classes I took with him. He introduced me to a lot of music I hadn't known about before. I learned about Milford from him.
Right.
So, I really just appreciated his patience and his love of the music and the joy he clearly took in sharing that,
Yeah.
to a young Jewish kid, who I couldn't swing for his life, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So he really, I don't know. I've been very slightly in touch with him since school, but I think he's still teaching there. So I'm guessing that person who asked might have been maybe a Bard person. Yeah.
Yeah, they always have the good faculty there. I mean, I was with Marina at Brooklyn
Same.
College, but she was teaching at your point too.
I took Marina's first college course that she ever took.
That's right. You did told me we talked about this. That's so funny because you became collaborators down the line later on.
Yeah. That's true.
That's kind of the goal for all the students, eventually to just be on that level with the people that you're studying with when you're a teenager or whatever.
Definitely very surreal.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's so much more we could talk about. Even just talking about what I learned from Marina, that was a whole thing, honestly. I was so at odds with her when I was her student, but I learned so much from her and from that class.
Same. Exactly that seems to be some of the healthiest sort of relationships, at least from teacher to student, because you kind of need, there's not tough love, but challenge in the justify your choices, with words,
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I because of the fact that I studied art and music in school, and there was some middle ground, right? I mean, look, if you are a Trammell follower, that one of the things he talks about, which I think is true, is in art school you learn about how to be a critic, right?
Right.
You learn about critique. I mean, there's other things too, but that is so often missing from music.
Absolutely.
There is such a lack of critical discourse about music, and the reason why is because music is also such a social thing that people don't want to risk their social connections by speaking critically about things that are happening in the music scenes, right? It's a problem because the music gets shittier because of that.
Yes.
Because it becomes more about blowing smoke up each other's asses. But anyway, I learned from her because she was critical about what I was doing in a way while being supportive. It's hello, you could be critical. You
Absolutely.
you could be productively critical, and you can still maintain a positive relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
So to the degree that I ended up getting an A in her class, and I play music with her now. So years later. So it's just I don't know. We could talk. I mean, that could even be a whole talk. It's just
exactly.
That's I think about anyway.
Musicians need to, in one sentence, musicians need to be able to express themselves beyond the music. We need to be able to talk about music in a way that is not automatically blowing smoke up each other's ass or trying to,
or the opposite,
and any sort of taking the opportunistic side out of the socializing of music.
Right.
You know what I mean? And in academia, it is unfortunately, the art academia prepares you for this. And music does not, and that's why we have people that that will leave with their degree being fantastic composers or performers or whatever, but it's no social game, not even on a self-critical or someone else's work, but just the ability that you could sit and talk for an hour about why you did this, and why you liked that. And we're kind of trained to let our music speak for itself, which I don't agree with.
I mean, that's part of why, to take it back to the beginning, what you're doing is super important, right? It's because you're opening up the space for critical discourse in music. And it's been lacking. That's why I support so wholeheartedly what you're doing and what you're all about. Because, like, it's not just about the music, it's about the culture around the music too. And we need to be intelligently critical about it and question it in order to make it better, right?
Yeah.
And that's everything from the practices of venues to the way people treat each other who are musicians to Spotify and all their bullshit. It's all that shit. And when people don't talk about, when there's no space for any of their criticism amongst the musicians or within the music, I think that extrapolates to everywhere else, where if you start complaining about a venue's practices, you're an asshole.
Right. Yeah. And it's like,
you're like some kind of like
space for
contrarian asshole.
Right.
It's like, no, I just am observing things and talking about what I'm observing.
Yeah.
Like
the scenes have been untouchable for too long, even in the scenes that initially were trying to kill their idols and things like that. You know, it's we need to constantly be talking about these things, because I feel like we will prevent future cancellations, or whatever you want to call it, of places, people, labels, whatever, if the culture is more ingrained in these discourses from the get-go, you know, where we're able to talk about these things openly. Anthony Fontano has just joined the chat. Oh man, that's
is he one of your patrons?
He's not yo, Anthony, you got to join the
Patreon.
I'm
going to reiterate. I want to reiterate this again, because I said it before. Folks are getting in on this because they follow me, but this is a Q&A with the Lamim Young Patreon, which is a private Instagram. So really do support. Go to that Patreon, sign up, and support the Lamim Young Patreon for more of these kinds of things. Yes. Because this guy's doing the good work, and I'm here for it.
Thank you. We continue the critical conversations in the memosphere. Thank you so much, Greg, for...
Also, I just want to shout out my boy Josh just signed on. Happy birthday, Josh. I'll call you.
Happy birthday, Josh. Happy birthday, Josh. Everybody go and buy Contact by Greg Fox on BandCamp. If you can catch a vinyl, get it while they're still available. Don't stream it. Stream it once and then buy it. Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much for taking 2 hours of your day. Really appreciate it, man.
Yo, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. It's been great.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody else. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you guys.
Peace everybody.